So basically I'm just reeling the reel up as I walk, and they know what time it is. So they're gonna move on into this paddock. And what you wanna watch is how they move in. Do they go right to grazing? Do they put their heads right down? Now you notice how they put their heads down and then they created a roadblock. That shows me that they were hungry. They should go all the way to the back and then start grazing. If they just immediately come into that paddock and they put their heads down, that means they were hungry and you've limited them a little bit in the last 24 hours. Now you can see again, every horse in here, they're just graze, one plant, move to the next. Graze, take a bite, take a bite, take a bite. And so that's kind of what you want to get, and it almost looks, when it regrows, it almost looks as if you bush hog the pasture. That's another reason for keeping the cells somewhat small, is you get a more uniform grazing, where if you have them on the whole field, you're not going to get uniform grazing. I'm going to show you what happened in the area. This was just 1 or 2 days of impact from a horse, but 3 horses on an area for at least a couple weeks. They've been on this area walking and grazing. They took all the clover down, then they took the grasses down, so the grasses are left as nubs. Barely have the growing tip alive. These grasses will barely survive. The soil is very, it's hard as a rock. They've compacted it. They stayed over this area because they wanted to see the other herd. And so even though they had a track around the whole fence and they had more grass on other areas of the field, you have to learn to think like an animal. These animals wanted to see their friends, especially when the mares were in season. They were calling to the other geldings, and they were staying over here and grazing rather than going on the hill, down the hill where they couldn't see the other herd. And so that had a huge impact. Your field may look like this. This may be what you've got at the end of winter, coming into spring. And if you don't get those horses off and you continue to do that and manage that way, you will systematically kill your soil and all your grasses and future productivity on your farm. And this is also to educate you a little bit about herd movement and how animals behave. When you set up a fence line, it's important for you to realize horses and herds tend to move along the fence line. No matter how wide I had made this track, you see how the horses are going right along the internal fence, because they're going to naturally want to go the shortest distance that they can. And so they're not walking along the outside of the fence. There is an old track that was worn, but that's from when their horses were continuously grazing. That's not recent activity. But this is the recent track. As they were galloping or just walking around, even, they choose to walk along the fence line. So if you have rose bushes or thorn bushes in your fields, or weeds you don't like and you want them stomped out, put the fence just with enough room for the horse to get between the bush and the fence safely without getting tangled in their blanket or anything, and you can direct the traffic to certain areas of your field to stomp out bushes you don't like, or to make the horse's track on a particular thicker area of sod.